Very good. I'm going to get us started as people keep coming in the virtual door for this Zoom meeting. Welcome to Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection's virtual Brownfields Roundtable. We've hosted a number of these sessions over the last few years in person at regional planning agencies and realized that we're missing out on a potential audience that doesn't have the opportunity to spend a half a day at a regional planning agency, nowhere near where they live. And so we want to make sure that the members of the community have access to this information about brownfields resources and financial funding and technical resources. So our objective today is to make sure that you, as the members of our community, have a good idea of who the right points of contact are, whether you're interested in DEP support or funding from the United States Environmental Protection Agency. So who the points of contact are, what the current funding resources are that are available. And I'm going to do a quick intro now to say that on behalf of Massachusetts DEP, our two speakers today will be myself, I'm the statewide Brownfields Coordinator, and Abigail Anderson, who's our Brownfields and Environmental Justice Coordinator. We sit in the Boston office. Speaking on behalf of the United States EPA Region 1 Brownfields team today will be Jim Byrne. On behalf of MassDevelopment, we have Dave Bancroft, who is the statewide Brownfields Coordinator and Senior Vice President for Community Development. We'll have a speaker from the Technical Assistance for Brownfields program. That's the Region 1 All of New England TAB program that is housed at the University of Connecticut. And then we'll be hearing a case study from Carrie Salwa, who's at the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission. And they have a great example of a project that used almost all the resources that we'll be talking about today. Next slide, please. So as you joined this call, you would have seen that we were recording it, and that is because we want to make sure this information was available on an on-demand basis. The recording will be posted in the coming days. I don't know the exact timing on that. We'd like you to keep your microphones muted during the presentations, and at the end, we'll do a Q&A session with all the speakers in one fell swoop. Also, all the slides that you'll see today, we'll be sharing with you as PDFs later this week. So the slide decks will come out this week, and we'll let you know when the video recording is available. It'll get posted to the DEP's website at a later date. Next slide, please. So Abby and I work in the Boston office, and we're really focused on getting information and resources from the Brownfields program out statewide. We're trying to connect people, whether that's project teams, regulators from the EPA or MassDEP, and folks from the other agencies that we interact with. We want to connect those project teams with those resources. But if you have questions about a specific site, a specific cleanup site that's regulated under the Massachusetts Contingency Plan, then we lean on and rely on the regional staff at MassDEP's offices. And each of the people I'm going to mention right now has a team that works with them in the Bureau of Wayside Cleanup. But in our Worcester office, our regional coordinator is Kevin Doust. In Woburn is Joanne Fagan. In Southeastern region, which is in Lakeville, Kate Carvalho services the Southeast region and Cape Cod. And Western Massachusetts, the regional Brownfields coordinator is Caprice Shaw. So again, if you call me, and I'm happy to be a first point of contact, when it's a site-specific question about a specific property or a specific project, I'll make sure that I loop in the correct project team. I don't claim to have personal knowledge about each and every one of the disposal sites that might be a Brownfield site working through our program. Next slide, please. So why are we here? In every community across the Commonwealth, there are properties. Now, some of them are easy to see. You know, 1 million square foot abandoned mill building. It's easy to see that this is the brownfields and it has challenges, and it's going to take some public support to help it move from point A to point B. Next slide, please. But many sites aren't as big and glaring and bright and I'll say obvious as the mill buildings that I showed you in the last slide. There might be, dumping at a property, or there might be a garage building that has waste in it, or it could just be an abandoned lot. In every community in our Commonwealth, there are properties that are in kind of a state of being underutilized, and they're not moving forward for some reason. And so, next slide, please. We believe that a lot of those sites are brownfields. And what I'm going to go through my definition of brownfield so that each of the other speakers can kind of zip by their definition pretty quickly, because we all share a common definition. A brownfield site is a property that's underutilized, has potential for reuse, and that underutilization is because the site is complicated either with known contamination. So someone has done some testing, they found soil or contamination or chemicals in soil or groundwater. And so there's some known problem that's like, this is going to be a financial cost to either assess or clean up, and that's hindering or becoming an obstacle for redevelopment. But it need not just be a known cost, it could be an unknown. Often, if a property has been in one family for a long time, it's now been abandoned, perhaps the property owner is not paying any taxes. And so a community is looking, should we take this by tax title? And often those old abandoned vacant properties, those are the ones where there's not good information. Like we look at it and from an environmental scientist perspective, we say, that what are the data gaps? What are the things that we don't know about this property? And that can be the biggest challenge. Someone may not want to buy a property if they don't know how big the liability is, what that cleanup cost would be. And so the huge benefit of the Brownfields program is that different entities, Massachusetts DEP included, have funding that can support assessment. And when I talk with people about assessment, I say, what we're trying to do is to eliminate unknowns or minimize those unknowns and really answer the questions. What are the challenges at the site? And what might it cost to move from point A to B, to point A, from point A to point B? Next slide, please. So in Massachusetts, our cleanup sites are regulated under the Massachusetts Contingency Plan. That is the regulation where if someone identifies a spill, they find chemicals in soil or groundwater, and they have to notify the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. They have to move through this process in the MCP, the Massachusetts Contingency Plan. And in Massachusetts, you're going to use a firm that has a licensed site professional. So those are just often referred to as LSPs. In Massachusetts, that's the qualified environmental professional. In other states, they might have different licenses or different expertise. A key aspect of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 21E, and that's the Brownfields Act, this huge milestone happened when the legislature set this program in place that there be a liability relief when the cleanup work is done and it reaches its end point. And so in the Massachusetts Contingency Plan, we refer to that end point as a permanent solution. So a key aspect was bankers and lenders were not financing projects because they had this concern that there's always going to be this risk of ongoing liability, ongoing risk. And the Brownfields Act created this category of people called an eligible person. And I define it here because this eligible person category, this is also linked to the MassDevelopment Brownfields funding. It's also linked to the Department of Revenue Brownfields tax credit. So in Massachusetts, it's really important to understand that this eligible person, which can be a business, doesn't have to be an individual, this eligible person is doing response actions and is conducting cleanup at a site where they own the site, but they didn't cause the contamination. They didn't own the site while the spill happened. They didn't run the gas station while a gasoline release happened. They have done their due diligence, they've purchased their property, and now they're doing the work as that next user, that next developer moving forward. And so the idea of an eligible person is that you're doing environmental cleanup actions, but you didn't cause the contamination. You're not the responsible party in the sense of the person who actually owned or operated the business when the spill happened. Next slide, please. One of the most important things you might take away from this evening's conversation is that if you're purchasing a commercial property, it is absolutely important, probably vital, and it's necessary if you're getting financing from any lender to conduct an ASTM Phase 1 environmental site assessment. You might hear people refer to it as, did you do a 21E? Which isn't the best shorthand because I just went through with you what a 21E, Massachusetts Chapter 21E is. But some lenders will call it just a 21E. But an ASTM site assessment helps you understand what the conditions are at your property before you take ownership. It's helping you put a line on a spot on the timeline that says, here's what the conditions were before I took ownership, and now I'm moving forward as the new owner. I'm the eligible person because we knew there was issues here before we took ownership of the property. And this ASTM standard, that's a national standard. That's not just based on properties being assessed in Massachusetts. And the environmental consulting businesses, the firms that do this work, should be doing these assessments to satisfy EPA's, quote, all appropriate inquiries rule. It's really important that if you're buying or selling a commercial property, that you have your ASTM phase 1 completed in the 6 months within 180 days before you buy or transact on the property. And if you have an old phase 1 and it's more than 6 months old, it's vital that you have it updated or you have a new one performed. Next slide, please. I want to touch on a couple of other programs that are kind of brownfields resources available within the Commonwealth. So the Department of Energy Resources has the Solar Massachusetts Renewable Target Program. This is a fantastic idea where if you submit an application, it's actually a pretty simple application to DOER, and you demonstrate that your site meets their criteria for being a brownfields. When you build your solar array or your renewable energy facility, you can charge more to the ratepayers because you're doing this from a brownfields. It's an incentive for people doing renewable energy development projects to put those projects on previously developed land or contaminated land or landfills. And frankly, from where I'm sitting, I would much prefer to see solar development happening on previously developed land and not clear cutting a forest or not putting solar on a farmer's field. Forests and farmers' fields, we can't get more of those, but we can reutilize the previously developed lands. The Attorney General's office has a program called the Brownfields Covenant Not to Sue. This typically applies to really complicated projects, fairly large, often merging multiple properties together, often merging sites with multiple spills on them. If you have a question and you think your site might warrant a covenant not to sue, please feel free to reach out and I can put you in touch with the right person at the Attorney General's office. Basically, the liability protections that I mentioned that come at the end, at the permanent solution stage of a Chapter 21E site closure, the Attorney General can give those liability protections earlier in the process. That's what the covenant does. It's getting you liability protections earlier so that as people are investing large sums into redeveloping complicated projects, they know they have that liability protection. I'm going to pass by MassDevelopment because David Bancroft is here and he'll tell you much more about that program. And then my next slide is on the Department of Revenue Brownfields tax credits. So next slide, please. So the Department of Revenue runs the Brownfields Tax Credit Program. So although it says Brownfields in the title, and my job title is Statewide Brownfields Coordinator, I do not run the Brownfields Tax Credit Program. But if you have questions, I can aim you at the right people at the DOR. One thing I want to key in on, though, is that this idea of an eligible person. So you can't be the person who caused the contamination. You can't be the responsible party and still apply for a Brownfields tax credit. But if you're an eligible person and you follow the MCP, you're doing your MCP response actions to get you to that condition of no significant risk, which is that permanent solution, as long as you're an eligible person, you can apply for a Brownfields tax credit. And this is one of the few places where for-profit businesses can also benefit from these, the Brownfields programs. Much of what we're going to talk about tonight are Brownfields funding and grants and assistance that's aimed at municipalities and nonprofits, but the Brownfields tax credit program through DOR is available to for-profit businesses as well. Next slide, please. So the Brownfields tax credit program, when we share these slides with you as a PDF, you'll find that all these links are live links. And what we've got highlighted there is the URL for Brownfields tax credit, kind of a brief guidance that they issued a couple of years ago. It's really important when you're doing work that you think you're going to apply for a Brownfields tax credit, that you go into it with a plan and you've done a good risk characterization and remediation plan to say, I need to do this work in order to achieve a condition of no significant risk. If you close your site out with no deed restriction, so no limitation on future site use, your Brownfields tax credit can be up to 50% of your total costs for a permanent solution. And if you end up leaving contamination on your site, so say, for example, you couldn't, the project didn't need the removal of a huge volume of soil and you leave that volume underneath, say, a paved parking lot. And so you say, we're going to keep that there and we're going to cap it. And so now we have a deed restriction that says we can't touch that soil. In the Massachusetts contingency plan, we refer to that deed restriction as an AUL, an activity and use limitation. If you close out your site, but you're relying on an activity and use limitation so that you're isolating that soil, your Brownfields tax credit application can be for up to 25% of your response action costs. So again, last thing I'll say, this is a DOR program. I want to make sure people have access to the information, but the decisions and the implementation of the program is DOR and not Massachusetts DEP. Next slide, please. So we have two different kinds of funding that MassDEP currently has. And this is really one of the reasons we're doing these Brownfields roundtables, is making sure people understand what we have available and what we can offer. So we have a community-wide assessment grant. So MassDEP applied to the EPA. The EPA granted us a program through their community-wide assessment program for states and tribes. So when states and tribes apply, we can apply for up to $2 million, where a typical city would apply for $500,000. We were awarded that grant almost a year ago, and we're well underway on assessments in about 8 or 9 communities right now. And our goal is to help people who have properties, and we're trying to help properties owned by municipalities, historically disadvantaged communities. And when we put in our application, we said we really want to work on some of the gateway cities, but also some of the smaller towns. If you think about some of the smaller towns where maybe there's only 2 or 3 full-time municipal staff, the kind of town where they really couldn't run their own Brownfields program, we want MassDEP to be their Brownfields team. And so if you're working with a municipality or you work for a municipality, please reach out if you think you have a site that would warrant some assessment. We want to be working with you. Next slide, please. So that assessment grant that MassDEP has is very similar to what other regional planning agencies or cities might have for their assessment grants, but something that's different than what the average community can get is the CERCLA 128A funding. So 128A funding is what the EPA grants to the Commonwealth or grants to all the states to help them run their statewide wayside cleanup programs. So on an annual basis, the MassDEP gets funding from EPA. During the 5 years of the bipartisan infrastructure law, we are getting an additional allotment of funding, and DEP decided we're going to use that funding just to do site-specific work. The key thing I want to highlight about the 128A funding, it's incredibly flexible. So I want to ask, what's the obstacle for your site? Is it dealing with a small volume of soil removal that might make your site available for residential housing? We're helping the town of Montague right now. Like literally on Friday, we're having a bid walk in Montague so we can manage a $200,000 soil removal and help them prep a property for 6 to 8 affordable housing units. Is the challenge that your city just took a property by tax title and it's got 60 drums on it? We just took care of a site about a year ago in Worcester, and by us removing those drums, we made it possible for the EPA to move forward and do other assessment activities. And then the city of Worcester is applying for an EPA cleanup grant. And then we've used our assessment tools and other cleanup tools in a really wide variety of ways, and it's incredibly flexible. So again, this is the type of thing, if you think you have a need, please reach out, and we want to talk about how we can solve that problem. Next slide, please. So the way that you reach out is using our Brownfields Assistance request form. The link that you see there is live on MassDEP's website. After this presentation or later this week, we'll share these with you. It's a fairly simple form. We wanted to keep it basic so that you don't need a degree in environmental science and engineering to fill it out. When you fill this out, if you don't know the answer to a question, please leave it blank. Like, we'd rather talk with you about an incomplete form and then fill in some gaps than have you spending a lot of time doing research that may or may not help us with our review of that request for assistance. So this assistance request form we're using for both the statewide assessment grant and for the 128A funding. And with that, I will ask for next slide, and I will hand it off to Abby Anderson so she can talk with you about our community engagement program in the Brownfields at MassDEP.
Thank you, Dave. Community engagement is a key part of our Brownfields work at MassDEP. These sites are disproportionately located in communities that already face outsized environmental burdens. And so we are focusing the resources of these grants that Dave just mentioned on these low population towns and historically disadvantaged communities. Our strategy for stakeholder engagement involves going where communities are. So we go to public meetings, to career fairs, to events at public libraries, to share information about MassDEP and hear from communities directly. Each of our 4 regional offices has someone who is a community engagement professional and an environmental justice professional whose whole job it is to go out, engage with communities, and then listen to your thoughts, ideas, and concerns. Some of the ways that we have worked to include community voices are our DEP Technical Assistance grants. These are awards of $20,000 that go to neighborhood associations so that they can hire their own environmental professional who can help them engage with a particular site. A lot of these sites have a lot of technical documentation that's really difficult to understand if you don't have a background in environmental engineering. This program allows these community groups to hire someone with that background to be their advisor, their advocate, and help them better engage with DEP and help us better engage with these groups. We also have a language access program at DEP. Next slide, please. The Language Access Program was established by Massachusetts 2021 Climate Roadmap Act, and this aims to help ensure that people can engage meaningfully with the department regardless of the languages that they speak. So the image here is what we call our language flag sheet. This goes out with a lot of different DEP communications, and it explains in 19 different languages that the recipient has the right to have that document translated into a language that they understand. So we translate fact sheets into the languages that are most relevant to the communities that they go out to, but we also translate individual communications. So if you or if a client of yours receives a communication from the department and you would like to have it translated, you can contact me directly. We also offer telephonic interpreter service and video remote interpretation. So if you have any questions about this program or have a need for translation, please contact me. Next slide, please. MassDEP hosts in-person roundtables, 4 of them per year since 2023. The benefits of holding these meetings every year is that funding levels change, policies change, and priorities change across the different programs that we speak about today. So we will hold these events again in 2026, and we would love to see you there. Next slide, please. So the aim of all of our programs here is to transform some of those sites that you saw in the beginning into success stories like these. These revitalized brownfield sites have a real impact on the communities that they're located in, and we want to create more of these success stories all across Massachusetts. And with that, I will turn it over to Jim Byrne from EPA to present about the EPA Brownfields program.
Good evening, everybody. As Dave mentioned, I'm Jim Byrne. I'm the EPA New England Brownfields Coordinator. Thanks for taking time out of your dinner hour to spend some quality time with your favorite regulators and other state institutions. Next slide, please. All right, what is a brownfield? I think David went into a pretty detailed discussion about this. Things to keep in mind, a brownfield site can be just about anything. As you can see the list there and what Dave presented in his presentation, it can be just about anything. Next slide, please. Eligible entities for EPA grants. You take a look at the slide here. Basically, eligible entities for EPA grants are anything that might be considered a governmental entity, city, town, regional planning organization, and nonprofits. Next slide, please. Here's a brief summary of our grant programs that we offer. Typically, we have the assessment grant program, which can be used to both inventory and assess sites. This is given to, as I said, governmental entities. Nonprofits are eligible, states and tribes as well. Cleanup, this is a direct cleanup grant to an eligible entity to clean up a brownfield site or sites. We have the revolving loan fund. Now, this is typically given to bigger organizations, larger cities, regional planning organizations, states, for instance. And this is a grant funding to capitalize a revolving loan fund for both loans and cleanup subgrants. The multi-purpose grant program, this is a program that's kind of hybrid. It combines both assessment and cleanup. Next slide, please. Job training grants. This is a very interesting program that was started at the beginning of the Brownfields program. This is a program where, typically we see nonprofits or educational institutions are granted money to set up a job training program for the under or unemployed people. As you can see, what we can do is we can train them in pretty much all aspects of the environmental field. And this gives people a good one up in starting a new career. We also work with our environmental contracting community in New England to encourage them to hire these folks if and when they get a chance. Next slide, please. State and tribal funding. Well, David mentioned this. This comes through our 128A program. Basically, what we do is we give funding to both states and tribes to enhance and maintain their voluntary cleanup programs. It allows the state to do inventory of sites that they keep on their website. They can oversee brownfields resources and enforce state tribal authorities. They can provide opportunities for local stakeholders, with meaningful to take part in meaningful participation in brownfields funding opportunities. They can also approve site cleanup plans and things of that nature. I think, Abby and David gave a pretty good description on that. Next slide, please. Technical assistance programs. We have a land revitalization technical assistance program. This is a program where an eligible entity can come in and they can look for planning resources, things such as charrettes, redevelopment assistance, community outreach. All right. We have the Technical Assistance to Brownfields program, with which my friend Randy Mendez from the University of Connecticut will be discussing in more detail later. We also have the Targeted Brownfields Assessment program. This is a program that we like to call a grant of services, where an EPA contractor will come to your town and do an assessment on your behalf. We do this a lot in the more rural areas of New England. As David mentioned, he's focusing on helping small communities that have limited resources, and this is what we target this program for. As with David's request for assistance, this is a simple 3-page application. We accept applications on a rolling basis, and make sure that you can find that stuff on our website. And as David mentioned, you're going to see throughout our presentation when it's issued to you, there are a number of hot links on here that you can use to find out any stuff about any of these programs. Next slide, please. Again, I think Randy is going to discuss this in more detail, but this is just an idea of the technical assistance to brownfield programs we have throughout the country. You don't have to have an active brownfield site. You can just give these folks a call and they'll help you. And the best news about it, as Randy, I'm sure will exemplify, is this help is free. Next slide, please. Region 1 brownfield site by the numbers. This is since the inception of the program in the late 90s. You look at the numbers here, it's just some incredible numbers. The one that blows me away the most is the last one there, the $4.5 billion that has been leveraged from cleanup, construction, and redevelopment of brownfield sites. It just still blows me away that this is an 8-to-1 multiplier. I mean, that means that, for those of you like myself that are bad at math, for every $1 EPA invests in a brownfield site, we get $8 back in state, other federal, and private investment. Just a crazy number. This is a program that really works, folks. Next slide, please. The anticipated FY26 Brownfields program schedule. We're going to be offering grant opportunity this fall again. We continue to hear from headquarters any day now. They've been saying that since the end of August, and here we are on September 9th. So we'll see when they come out. Keep your eyes peeled for those. We will expect probably grant applications due before Thanksgiving. We will review and rank these over the winter with anticipated award dates probably in May of 2026 for this year's grants. Next slide, please. Again, I encourage you to visit our website. It's really good. It can answer a lot of questions you have, but you can always feel free to call any of us on the Brownfields team for any questions. Next slide, please. There's my contact information. I want to leave you with a few takeaways here. First of all, the EPA Brownfields Grant Program. We are a grants and technical assistance program. It's all about partnerships in brownfields, as you'll see if you look at some of the links to our success stories between all 3 levels of government, as well as the private sector and the nonprofit sector. And we are not an enforcement program. Important to keep that in mind. We rely on our state voluntary cleanup plans like the Mass Contingency Plan to guide you through the cleanup process. Thanks very much for your attention, and I look forward to addressing your questions at the end.
Thank you very much, Jim. I appreciate you contributing from EPA. And I guess one thought was the ability to get free support. What EPA is providing and what the TAB provider, so what Randy Mendes will share with us, is free. Like the technical assistance that's coming your way, there's no cost to that. So it's really important to say, what are the things that I can get? What questions can I get answered at no cost to you? Next up, I'd like to introduce David Bancroft, who's the Senior Vice President for Community Development for MassDevelopment. Go ahead, David.
Well, good evening, folks, and thanks for joining. It is a great opportunity to actually be able to do this at night so we can get more people in attendance. So I am David Bancroft from MassDevelopment. We can go to the next slide. So you probably want to know, who is MassDevelopment? MassDevelopment is the state's quasi-public economic development finance agency, which is a lot to say. That what we do is we provide generally financing or grants to a variety of businesses that can be nonprofits, for-profits, municipalities, everything from hospitals and universities here in Massachusetts down to small businesses located in your downtown areas. So part of what we also do is the state of Massachusetts, as an economic development agency, we are charged with and given some various economic development tools or programs that we manage on behalf of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the Brownfields program being one of them. And that's what I do. So, just last year alone, we financed over about 350 projects, 3.5 billion into the Mass economy, and that equals about 23,000 jobs. And primary other focus is housing. So about 1,750 units of housing were touched and helped to be created through our various programs that we have. Next slide, please. So who do we serve? As I said earlier, we serve everything from the businesses, developers, housing community, manufacturing, municipalities, nonprofits, banks. We do everything from, as I said, hospitals and university financing of new wings and new dorms to cranberry bogs and fishing vessels, anything that brings jobs or creates an economic development here in Massachusetts. Next slide. Brownfields Redevelopment Fund was given to Massachusetts, was created by in Massachusetts legislature in about 1998, and it was immediately given over to MassDevelopment to run it. I think, as Jim kind of alluded to, the purpose of it originally was not to be a regulatory tool, but more of an economic development tool. So this money was given to us, and it is, I'm not going to define what a brownfields is because David has already done that, but it is to actually get these sites back on the local community's tax rolls as a way of doing just restoring the communities. We have two major buckets, is how I would describe it. We have the Commonwealth's One Stop for Growth, which only deals with municipally owned properties. And then we have the Rolling Round, which deals with everyone else, nonprofits, community development corporations, and municipalities that actually have a project that they are undertaking currently. So let's start with you can go to the next slide. So let's start with the program parameters. I'm going to do bucket number one, which is the One Stop for Growth. As I said, that is available to municipalities for city or town-owned properties that they do not know who the developer is going to be. They're trying to position this property to put it back out to bid, to bring it back onto their tax rolls. We can provide up to $100,000 in site assessment and $250,000 in site remediation assistance. That is a competitive round funding source, and that is opened up about once a year. In probably will not, well, it won't open up again until next spring, where you can actually start applying if you're a municipality and you have a piece of property that you want to find out what the issues are. But as a matter of fact, today was the day that MassDevelopment's board will actually meet this Thursday to make the decisions on the One Stop. So you start applying in the late spring, early summer, and decisions are made September and October. So that's about a year away. But we also have the Rolling Round. And the Rolling Round is a grant, has to be a grant. So the only people who can get grants are nonprofits, community development corporations, or a municipality. And that we can do up to $250,000 in site assessment or $750,000 in site remediation. That is a rolling application process. So as the applicant is ready to proceed with this project, which means that it would get underway within 6 months to a year, and ideally be completed within a year and a half to 2 years from the time the award was given. You can come in when you need the funding or when you think you're going to need the funding. So it's a rolling application. There's no competition. You kind of stand by yourself and you demonstrate your need for the money. You do have to demonstrate why it needs to be a grant. And we would walk you through that process, and we would have you apply, but only after you've had a conversation with us to kind of get over the basics and understand the project and make sure that it's a right application for you to fill out. One thing I will say on all brownfields that are ineligible activities, we get this an awful lot, is building demolition is not a brownfields issue, and neither is interior environmental issues like lead or asbestos within a structure. They are environmental issues you've got to deal with, but they are not eligible for the brownfields program. We cannot finance or give money to any municipality or entity that the end use of that property is going to be a municipal or public space. So no town halls, fire stations, police departments, schools, town public works areas, or parks or rec fields. The purpose of this is economic development, and the purpose is to get money back into the cities and towns' tax base. So those would be non-taxable entities. Therefore, they are not considered economically beneficial to the community in terms of its generating property tax. We cannot do geotechnical surveys, and you cannot be deemed the primary responsible party or have a relationship to someone who is deemed the primary responsible party. Next slide. Over the past year in the One Stop for Growth, which will come Thursday, there'll be new numbers on this, but last year it was 1.38 million. 7 communities received it. 33.94 acres. We're always looking for how many acres we are restoring back to productive reuse. And in the rolling applications, we did about 4.96 million, 15 grants across the Commonwealth, 18.39 acres, 832,000 square feet of new development, and 690 new residential units. Since this slide in FY26, we have just done another 1.554 million for 6 additional projects. So that is being announced as we speak. So next slide. So what is a rolling round eligible entity? As I said, it's a CDC. It's a certified, certain nonprofit organizations. Harvard University is a nonprofit, but they would not be eligible for a grant. So we're looking more at nonprofits that kind of act as a CDC or do affordable housing or social services or some benefit to the community, but they aren't deemed a community development corporation as that is defined, but they kind of act as one. YMCA would be another example of something of a nonprofit that would work in that category. Municipalities and their agencies obviously could be the redevelopment authority or an economic development agency that they have within the town or city. EDICs, economic development and corporations. There has to be a public benefit that has already been identified again. And on the rolling round, the developer has to be in place. Next slide. Again, this is the site assessments. Funding $100,000 through the One Stop. Municipalities only $250,000 for anyone else per site. You are required to have a licensed site professional, which David went over a little bit earlier, who kind of deals with the 21E issues. And you must have control of the site or at least the right to enter the property to perform the testing. Next slide. Remediation, again, $250,000 through a competitive one-stop process, only available to municipalities with a site, but an unknown developer, or $750,000 for all others. who are eligible, and that is per site, and that is available. Again, nonprofits, municipalities with a known developer, anyone else who's got a project that would be deemed eligible. And it is a grant, so it has to be, there has to be a demonstration as to why it needs to be a grant. Next slide. So these are some case studies. The Fidelity Bank in Worcester Ice Center is a good example. This goes, we're trying to deal with something in the central region. This goes back a couple of years, but it was done at that when it says forgivable loan. What does that mean? It means that in certain cases, if certain funds are generated or the site is sold at a profit after we have put what would be a grant into it, we have the right to recoup the money or a portion of that money. So sometimes they are referred to as forgivable loans, although they primarily act as grants. This was a combination of costs that some came from the EPA, some from the city of Worcester, which is what we prefer to see is a partnership between the local or feds and also the state to move something forward. Obviously, this was an important project for the city of Worcester. Again, our almost $2 million, which deemed a priority project that did go above and beyond the what I mentioned as earlier limits. At this point, probably $2 million. It would be very rare to give that much out anymore, but that was an example in the Worcester area. Next one. And this was one from the North Region, Lawrence Community Works. So here's an example of a community development corporation. This actually was 2 sites. It ended up being 80 units of affordable housing in 2 different buildings. We gave them $955,000 in site assessment and remediation funding. It was a 4-acre site. It was kind of right there just outside of downtown Lawrence. And it has been transformed into, like I said, 80 units. There's been some restoration of a park next door that borders the Merrimack River. There is other projects going on in the general area. This was a partnership between the city of Lawrence and Mass Housing and Massachusetts Department of Housing and Livable Communities, which used to be the old DHCD. And again, we took over 20,000 tons of soil needed to be excavated, managed, and transported. And as I said, we have 80 units of affordable family rental housing, with all 80 units now being actually occupied. And we also have in that building is Squash Busters, which is a nonprofit that actually uses the sport of squash as a tool to help mentor and take children and youth from the inner cities of, in this case, Lawrence, and kind of follows them through life and gets them into college by using sports and education. Next slide. As I said, the Community for One Stop for Growth, again, is run by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. There's a variety of programs that go through this, the Brownfields program being one of them, again, but only for municipalities. The other aspects of the program that are kind of managed by MassDevelopment are the underutilized properties program, real estate technical assistance, and site readiness. As I said earlier, the Brownfields program cannot deal with interior issues of a building, but site readiness can. So if those issues are going on, we sometimes can combine them. Again, this is once a year. The round closed on June 4th. I don't have a year for next year. Announcements will probably be made at the end of the month as to who was successful. Highly competitive, though, just so everyone knows. Next slide. So if you have any further questions, you should feel free to call me, or you can email me at dbancroft@massdevelopment.com, or you can visit the MassDevelopment website at massdevelopment.com, and you can find out not only about the Brownfields program, but all the other programs that may be of assistance to you. I am actually based in Lawrence, in our Lawrence office, but I do deal with the Brownfields issue across the Commonwealth. So at this point, I will give it back to David, and I look forward to any questions that people may have at the end of the presentation.
Thank you very much, David. Really appreciate it. And one thing I just wanted to clarify, because MassDevelopment was very specific, You cannot use MassDevelopment's Brownfields money to deal with asbestos or lead paint or interior building materials, but the EPA Brownfields funding can be used for asbestos or lead paint and abatement of building materials. So I just want to one of the reasons we have these meetings is because the different programs have different guidelines and different protocols. We want to make sure that, and this is the other reason to ask, to reach out and say, "Ooh, I have this challenge, this building that has asbestos in it. What can I do?" And I will say, you can reach out to us, but if it's asbestos in an old school, let's not reach out to David Bancroft. So one point of clarification. Next up, I'd like to introduce Randy Mendez, who's the director of the Technical Assistance Program, the TAB program, for all of EPA Region 1, which is New England. And she will speaking to us from the University of Connecticut. Randy, you're up next.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Randy Mendez, and as Dave said, I'm the director of the UConn TAB program. As you're probably very familiar at this point, we love our acronyms in the Brownfields world, and our name itself is a giant acronym. But basically, in simple terms, we basically are a free technical assistance program to support New England. We're funded by the EPA, and basically our task is to help you in any way that we can. Obviously, you've learned a lot about brownfields at this point, but the key point of why we care, why we have programs like ours and all the other technical assistance programs is because there are several brownfields already identified within Massachusetts, and many that are still unidentified and or in the process of being identified. So it's an ongoing issue and something we want to help you and your communities with. Next slide, please. So this is our team. I just like to highlight this slide to showcase kind of the diverse backgrounds that our team has. This really allows us to address issues in a multifaceted way and bring different levels of expertise to solve the issues. We have some of the more stereotypical, like myself with an environmental engineering background, to people like Katie, who leads our community engagement work. She has a background in social work. And we have Damian Sorrentino, who is a project manager, but also has a background in planning. So we, like I said, come with a variety of background and are here to help in all the different facets of brownfields. Next slide. One of our newest partners is the New England Rural Health Association. You might have seen us around. NELUB is kind of our key partner within NERHA. So NERHA, this again, all the acronyms, but basically they help us with a lot of our Northern New England outreach with a specific focus on rural communities. So NELUB has been really beneficial with connecting us to rural communities all over New England as well as Northern New England, and has been putting together some community engagement material specific to rural communities. So if you have any interest in that or want to talk more about that, we're happy to chat later. Next slide, please. So with our direct technical assistance and our assistance in general, we pretty much it's 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, I can't talk. We categorize our assistance into 4 buckets just to kind of make it simple. That being said, we like to have conversations with you, figure out, what your need is and figure out how we can best help. So if it doesn't fit into one of these buckets, that's okay. But if it does, then perfect. The first bucket being our direct technical assistance. This typically entails direct document or technical document review. So let's say you just received that phase 1 or that phase 2 report, and you're like, what the heck is this 100-page report? I don't know what it's saying. We can help with reviewing it and putting it in a more digestible form for you and your community. We also do brownfield proposal reviews. So both grant reviews and state program proposals we can review. We have an abundance of resources that we can point you in the right direction if we're not the right person, or we can give you some of the resources that we've developed ourselves. And then I like to say we have quick availability. So we check our email every day, and we're pretty much able to set up a meeting or a call with you that day or the next day. Next slide. One of the newest services that we have is procurement support. So this is just kind of a glimpse at the page on our website. And basically we have a stepwise function to walk you through the process. It can be really complicated. It can be really, not tedious, but also tedious to go through. Basically, there's a lot of steps and a lot of things where you can go wrong. So we want to make sure that you're doing it right the first time. So you can check out this website to learn more, but basically the process entails shooting us an email and we'll take it from there. Our next big bucket is our municipal assistance program. This is our most unique and most active program, I guess you could say. Basically, we are housed, because we're housed at the University of Connecticut, we also support a Brownfields course that's held at UConn. It supports undergrad and graduate students. During that class, the first class being in the fall, the students learn about brownfields, kind of the whole process through the redevelopment. And during that class, they also work in groups and are partnered with a municipality that is interested in seeking out an EPA brownfield grant. The students then get to learn about the process of applying for grant, writing grants, and support the community with some of the data mining that you need to do for specifically like section 1 and 2 in the narrative. The students are overseen by someone from our staff, and it kind of makes this large cohesive support network where a community gets the extra help, the students get the real world experience, and then we get, as TAB, get extra help through the students so we can have a larger capacity to support communities. In the spring and summer, this shifts to more technical projects. So instead of a grant focus, we do more projects like brownfield inventories, data gap, and record review projects. We can do grant preparation, so it's never too early to start with that. Site reuse planning, which is by far one of our most popular projects, and then community engagement and planning materials. Next slide. And so this is just kind of a quick glimpse at some of these projects. So for example, with the brownfield inventories, not only are we just helping you identify these sites and go through the ones that are or are not brownfield inventories, but then we provide you with more information than you ever thought you needed on them. This is just a quick example of some of the data that we do pull for each of these sites. We get this information from existing public places, so MassDEP list, EPA, cleanup semi-community, and then we also do what we like to call Google Creep, where we kind of look around on Google Maps to see if we can visually identify, and then that's followed up by an actual site visit where we drive around your community to identify any others visually. Next slide. Record review. So this most similarly mimics what you would see in a phase 1, but I want to express that this does not replace a phase 1. We are not signing off on phase 1s. We do not replace the need for an environmental professional. This is simply just a report that we put together that allows a community to then enter the conversation when they're ready to get that phase 1 to better understand what's going on in their community. So it's a very introductory kind of report of understanding what's going on with the site. Next slide. The site reuse assessment project. So like I said, these are our most popular. This is basically a holistic assessment of what a site can be reused into. It looks into property information, opportunities and constraints, what the community wants and needs. And then if there has been a market study done, it brings in some of that. If not, we do look at kind of just, we don't do market studies, but we can basically look what's in your community, what businesses are in the surrounding area, and kind of evaluate need based on that. From this, we basically say, okay, these different pieces allow, you know, your large bubble of reference point now gets a little bit smaller. These are your options now within it. Then we work with the community and the entity that we're working with to better understand, okay, what does the community want to see? And eventually we come up with a couple of possible visions that the community can assess, and we can do an iterative back and forth of what you like, what you hate, and then come up with these renderings. So if you go to the next slide, I think I have an example of the renderings. So this is an example of a brownfield site that this is what we're working with to start with. And if you click again, you'll see the renderings that we put together to spark kind of the community vision of these sites and how they can be redeveloped. So I think if you click, it should animate.
Next slide, Amita.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So basically, you know, when you've been staring at a brownfield site for too long, sometimes you're like, I don't know what the heck this can be turned into. It can be really daunting and can be kind of frustrating. And so having these students working on these projects really does bring in a fresh mindset. It brings in excitement. It brings in a bunch of new ideas. And so they can turn what that brownfield site was into something like this to spark community excitement and communication, as well as some of these images and reports that we put together can be used for developer packets to bring in developers. Next slide. And so these are just a few more examples of the renderings that we do. We use SketchUp and Lumion. Our students are, they get to learn how to use this as well. And we went over a lot of the projects we actually did this summer, and some of these pictures are quite amazing. They end up looking like photographs and not just computer created renderings, which is pretty great. Next slide. The next bucket is our continuing education. So we hold several webinars throughout the year. We do follow kind of the UConn semester system, so fall, spring, and summer. So you might see like this graphic on here, summer webinar series. Typically we have 3 to 4 webinars. All of them are recorded and all of them are posted on our website. They're typically Wednesdays at 12 and they're 30 minutes long. This fall, we will be hosting open office hours for drop-in for questions on the EPA grant. So keep your eye out for that. And then our community engagement. So we have an onboarding form that we basically set up a meeting with an entity, chat with you, see what's working, see what's not working. And we say, hey, we think these services, these tools might help you. These tools are make up our what we call our SEEDS framework. It stands for Stakeholders, Educate, Empower, Disseminate, and Sustainable Outreach. Basically, we're here to help you identify the people in your community that are going to be a part of the decision-making process in the brownfields. We're here to help you educate yourself as well as your community, and then empower you all to expand that knowledge to more stakeholders, more people in your community, disseminate that information, and then continue that on your own. Obviously, we're here to help along the way, but we want to make sure that this is like a sustainable process and not just something that once we step back that you're not able to continue on your own. We have a lot of tools, and a lot of this is on our website. The link is below, so you can go check that out. Next slide. So all of our services, it's kind of a mouthful. It's a lot to throw at you at once. So we did create this nice flow chart. It basically helps you identify where you're at in the process and what services we provide that might help you. This is on our website and something that we hand out as well. So if you're ever like, I don't really know what they can do, this is a good starting point, or you can just send us an email and we're happy to figure out, where you're at and what we can do. And again, all of our services are completely free, so you want to take advantage of it. And then this is just to kind of showcase the support and impact that we've had. We're really grateful to be growing and to expand our reach across New England and to help communities that need our help. So like I said, reach out to us. We're more than happy to be there. And especially as grant season's coming, in addition to our MAP program, we do host reviews for the grant. We also put together an entire application package that is unique to each grant type, and it comes with templates, successful examples. We'll also include different changes from the past year to this year, frequently asked questions, etc. So it's a very comprehensive packet, and we'll do as many iterations of the review as needed up until when it's time to submit. Thank you. And there's our email, our website, and our LinkedIn. We do have a newsletter if you're interested in joining. And stay tuned. We are actually creating a new mascot that'll soon be surfacing to be showcased in our soon-to-be social media on Facebook.
Excellent. Well, Randy, thank you very much. And in case you guys didn't take this away, the services of the UConn TAB program are free. Like, there is no cost, and you could be a municipality or CDC, and you may not know if you have brownfields. You can reach out to UConn, and their program can help you with certain steps. A key thing is taking those old abandoned, blighted properties and helping convince the next users that there's a potential there, that there's something else that could be done there. And the renderings and artistic designs, or the engineering designs, or kind of landscape architectural designs that the UConn TAB team can put together are a fantastic resource. If you have to convince a municipality that we're going to take a contaminated property and it has a future use, it's really important to help people see the pictures, and so it's a great resource. And if you reach out, we can help connect you to the right folks there. So next up, we're going to hear a case study presented by Carrie Salwa from the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission. Carrie is a regional planner in the Community Development Program at CMRPC, which covers the southern half of Worcester County. It's Worcester and 39 other communities. And please bear with us. We're having a minor technical challenge. And so Carrie will be presenting from phone. You won't have her video, but we'll have her voice. And so Carrie, I'd like to hand it off to you. And this will be our case study, after which we'll do Q&A with everyone who is a speaker. Go ahead, Carrie. Carrie's currently muted, Abby.
Yes, I'm trying to ask her to unmute. Let's see. Doesn't seem to be working. Oh, there she is, maybe.
Did that work?
There you are.
Hello?
Hello.
Oh,
Right.
It's scary.
the adventure begins. I've never been in Zoom jail before, so this is a first for me. Thank you, David. You can't tell by my face, but I'm very happy to be here to present what we are deeming a success story case study from our region. And with over 30 brownfields projects to choose from, it was a no-brainer for me to pick this North Brookfield project. I have been working North Brookfield since my very first month at CMRPC, and there's just something very special about this community, and it drew me in quick. I'm not sure if it's all the potential that their downtown had or the fact that there's a very famous recording studio there, but either way, I was smitten with the town, and I'm going to do my best to tell their success story this evening. Slide, please. So we are the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission, as David mentioned. This is the region we proudly serve, highlighted in green. Hopefully that's the slide you're seeing. For those not familiar, I'll give my CMRPC RPA soundbite. So we cover some of the boroughs, the Wachusett School region, the 395 corridor, all the way to the Brookfields. So 40 amazing communities in total. We have two divisions, the transportation and the region RCCP, which is the Regional Collaboration and Community Planning Division. We are a staff of close to 60, if not more at this point. We cover a whole host of projects, housing, comprehensive planning, energy planning, economic development, transportation improvement projects, transit, trails, community development block grant, homeland security, public health, and really so much more. Slide, please. As David mentioned, my name is Carrie. I'm the director of the Economic Development Division, and my team recently took over our Brownfields program. So we submitted a coalition application 2 years ago that was not awarded, and we decided to go for it, resubmit it again this year with the help of UConn Tab. We've really enjoyed these roundtables and learning as much as we can on this topic from all of you. So mostly we're excited to put this grant into motion and really start the work. Slide, please. So this slide, hopefully, is of North Brookfield here on the left, and then this is downtown North Brookfield on the right. So the site in the story we'll be focusing on today is number 5, highlighted in blue. It's the old Aztec Industries, as we refer to it. So we have the town hall, number 1, which is uniquely housed in the first floor of an office building downtown, while its original building is continually vying for redevelopment funding. The library, number 2, and the DPW Turn Fire Station directly across from the police station, another downtown project, is number 3. And number 4, over here, you have the rail trailhead that leads right into the downtown. It also connects with a few other nature trails and walking loops. So number 5 in the blue is the cool newest police station. 6 is the senior center, and that's been getting continual updates over the past few years. And 7 in green is the town common. So I mentioned this, it's not a common as you would typically picture a common. It's actually a huge park with playgrounds and fields and courts. And this property has also moved from the potential project folder to an actual project list. In fact, we have a meeting there, not next week, but the week after, to move that project forward. So all of this movement has spurred from one brownfields renovation. And North Brookfield is a community that runs primarily by volunteers, and it really knows what it wants, and it won't rest until it's completed, even if it takes multiple decades. Slide, please. As you can see here, zoomed in version of the site that we're discussing, and the timeline shows that this parcel was activated in the late 1800s and was highly industrial through the mid-1980s. So what began as a boot and shoe factory turned asbestos manufacturing location, then into Aztec Industries. So close to 100 years of industry on and off until the town took the property over in 2000 through tax title foreclosure. So this is obviously a very Cliff Notes version of the history, but I think it gives you an idea of the activity that it's gone through. Slide, please. So here's another view of the police station. Cleanup discussions were initiated in the late 90s by the EPA and MassDEP and completed in 2010. It was a combination of state and federal sources helped pay for the cleanup of the abandoned site, and the abandoned site was contaminated with asbestos, other chemicals, and other industrial waste. So there were total 1,900 bags of asbestos, 68 drums of hazardous material, and over 2,500 gallons of oils and solvents. So a total of over $833,000 was awarded for both the cleanup and the redevelopment of this site. This building really is, it's so cool. I'll spare you the details of everything that goes on in there, but not only is it a beautiful to look at, it's modern, it's the envy of so many other communities, but it's a low-key community center. So it hosts dozens of meetings and multiple committees all year round. So as it sits here today, the first of many projects, some kind of subtle over the past few years, it's really started to answer the long-standing question for the folks of North Brookfield that have been asking themselves for so long, like, why not us? Why not North Brookfield? I feel like it's finally happening for them. Slide. As far as revitalizing goes, they're really not done yet. So there are two parcels of the Aztec Industries site that have yet to be redeveloped, and some areas still actually need assessment and cleanup. So the town is currently in discussions with the EPA and the DEP on these efforts. As you can see in this slide, there's a concept plan for the remaining area, and it includes an extension of the trail I was telling you about, bringing it directly into the downtown, another loop trail, and possibly a pump track, and a massive size parking lot, which is really just more than a parking lot. So the new parking lot will serve kind of as a welcome sign to visitors to come in and visit, to use the professional services on North Main Street, to pay a tax bill, attend a meeting at the new police station, watch a game at hopefully the soon-to-be renovated Common, parking for the 2 shifts at workers at Vibram next door, parents or spouses bringing loved ones to the pump track, parking for those who use the rail trail, or parking when the town celebrates their May Day festival in May. Slide, please. As you walk through this project historically through the current state of the property, it's really fair to say this location was both an opportunity for economic development reuse and to tie in with the other projects, as I mentioned earlier, but it also came with challenges as well. Potential health risk, there's a potential public health risk. I can't talk either, Randy. In developed areas, this is very highly visible to the nearby residents. So these efforts have been in motion for close to 30 years now. The early reuse of the parcel for the police station is what really made this a success and gave the community a quick and important win and the momentum to move forward. Several of our smaller communities in our region have issues with capacity, and North Brookfield really isn't any different. So I wasn't around when this project went through the Brownfields process, but we've heard over and over that the sustained commitment of the residents in the town and the public officials serving this town have been indispensable to seeing cleanup and the reuse of the site into fruition. So the last thing I want to share is that we've heard a few times over now that the collaboration on this was massive. Multiple entities collaborated over a very long period of time and leveraged each other's capabilities and resources. So the town of North Brookfield, CMRPC was there, DEP, EPA, MassDevelopment. So it was really a collaborative effort. So that's, thanks for allowing me to join you and share this project.
Thank you, Carrie. I really appreciate it. And thank you for sticking with us regardless of the technology challenges. This project is a great example of it's a public redevelopment or public benefit that couldn't have happened with any just one entity. The town wouldn't have been able to do it themselves. EPA wasn't going to do it without kind of support of the town and support of MassDEP. And so that adjacent property that Carrie just described, that's just to the north of the police station, which is also part of the former Aztec Industries, DEP used part of our 128A funding a year ago to do assessment out there. Thank you to Kevin Dowse from our Sumter Region office for highlighting that. And based on the results of that, the EPA is planning to do a removal action, so an actual soil remediation activity out there. And so this is ongoing. So yes, the police station is there and there's activity happening that could kind of be the foundation for that center of town. And this is right in the heart of the center of town if you go to North Brookfield. But there's more work going on, and that's being supported by both MassDEP and the United States EPA Brownfields team. So with that, I'd like to say thank you.